Good morning, guys. In the last class, we have seen how to develop first application by using Spring framework. So in this application, we are using IOC container. So what is that IOC? IOC is a principle which is responsible to manage and collaborate dependencies among the objects in our application. For that IOC container, we are giving XML file as an input. In this XML, we configured our beans details. Bean definitions are available in this XML. So in our application, there are 4 beans available. So I configured 4 definitions. In this configuration file only, I'm telling what is the target, what is the dependent, how the dependency injection should happen. As per the given configuration, IOC container will perform dependency injection. Got my point? Yes, let's run this application. Let's run this application. Here I have a test class. In this, I'm having a main method. In this main method, I'm having application context. Application context is equal to new class path XML application context springbeans.xml. Application context is equal to new class path XML application context. So here springbeans.xml file I am giving as a input. Then context is the variable which is holding IOC reference. So this class is responsible to load the XML file and give it as the input for IOC container. Then IOC container will read this XML. In this XML, bean definitions are available. So IOC container will read all the bean definitions, will create the objects, will perform the dependency injection. As the objects are creating by IOC container, we are getting the object from the IOC container by using getBean method. Every bean is having a unique ID. Using this ID, we can get that bean object and we can call the methods. Right click, run as Java application. Now see, I'm able to call this method collect payment. When I call collect payment, payment.pay, this method also called. Now, so this variable injected, this variable is not injected, guys. This variable got injected or this variable is not injected now. As the variable injected, we are able to call the method. If the variable is not injected, we cannot call that method. Now, how can we see what value is injected to this variable? Simply, let's write one line of code. System.out.println payment.getClass.getName payment.getClass.getName. So which class object injected to this variable? I'm printing that class name on the console. Payment is the variable belongs to a interface. That variable we are injecting by using setter injection. Which class object injected to that variable I'm trying to print by using payment.getClass.getName. Payment.getClass.getName. Let's go to the test class. Let's run this. Run as Java application. Can you see which class object injected now? Which class object injected now? Come on. Debit card payment class object got injected. Why debit card payment object injected? Why not UPI or why not credit card? Why only debit card payment injected? Did we specify that to IOC container to inject only debit card payment? Yes, where we have mentioned that? We have mentioned that in the XML property name is equal to payment, ref is equal to debit card. Hey, IOC, to this payment variable, you have to perform the setter injection. That's why I'm writing a property. Property name is equal to payment, ref is equal to debit card. That means debit card class object should be passed as a parameter to this setter method. In the setter method, we have a line of code to initialize this variable with that method parameter. This dot payment is equal to payment. Whatever the object we are passing to setter method, that object will be initialized to payment. As I am passing debit card object, it is injecting debit card object into this variable dot method. Here it is going to call debit card class method. For example, if I specify UPI here, ref is equal to UPI. Now let's run our program, run as Java application. Bill collector, run as, test.java, run as Java application. Now can you see UPI class object injected, payment successful through UPI. Now my bill collector is tightly coupled with any payment, or my bill collector is loosely coupled with the payment. My bill collector is tightly coupled with the payment. My bill collector is loosely coupled with the payment. My bill collector is loosely coupled with the payment, right? Because my bill collector class developed by following strategy design pattern. I am not using any inheritance. I am not using any implementation class directly. I'm talking to a interface. Instead of inheritance, I'm using composition. I'm declaring a variable. That variable data type is not a class. That variable data type is a interface. So my class is 100% loosely coupled, right? So currently we are doing setter injection. So to perform the setter injection, we are using property, right? So what is the proof that setter injection is executing? Guys, what is the proof to say that, sir, how can you prove that property tag is executing setter method? Can you prove that? Can we prove that property tag is using setter injection? Can we write one SOP statement? Can we write one SOP statement and can we understand that method is called or not? Yes. Inside the set payment method, I'm writing one SOP. If that SOP is executed, that means that setter injection got executed. Now go here, right click, run as Java application. Can you see? Set payment is executed, UPI payment object injected, payment successful through UPI. So with this, we are clear that property tag is using setter injection to perform dependency injection. Now here it injected which object? It injected which object that we can print, run as Java application. Set payment method executed and it injected UPI payment object and payment successful through UPI. Yes, we are able to perform setter injection by using property tag. Guys, are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with this? Yes. Yes. Guys, now here, when you go for setter injection, there is a small problem. When you go for setter injection, there is a small problem. Without writing this property tag also, we can write our configuration. Am I able to write the configuration without property tag? Do we have the property tag now? Do we have the property tag now? Is it telling, is the configuration file telling me to write the property tag, or it is not telling me to write the configuration. It is not telling me to write that property tag. I have written a configuration without property tag. I have written the configuration without property tag, but when I execute this, it is failing. I'm getting null pointer exception. Why I'm getting null pointer exception? Why I'm getting null pointer exception? Can you guess now? In this scenario, IOC container just creating objects. In this scenario, IOC container just creating the objects. IOC container not performing the dependency injection. In this scenario, IOC container just creating, in this scenario, IOC container just creating object, IOC container not performing dependency injection. As IOC container not performed dependency injection, can I say that payment variable holding null value? If IOC container not performing the dependency injection, can I say that payment variable holding null value? Null dot method, here payment is holding null value, null dot get class, it is giving null pointer exception. Yes, when you go for setter injection, there is a chance of getting null pointer exception because Spring configuration also is not forcing to do the dependency injection because calling setter methods are optional. When you have a setter method, is it mandatory to call the setter method or is it optional to call the setter method? It is optional. It is optional to call the setter methods. Got my point? Fine. Now, when we write a constructor, now see, I am writing only parameterized constructor. I am not writing, earlier I do have 0 parameterized constructor and I am having parameterized constructor. Now I'm removing this 0 param constructor. I'm having only parameterized constructor. I want to perform constructor injection. Now I will remove the setter also. I want to perform constructor injection. I want to perform the dependency injection through constructor. When we want to perform dependency injection through constructor, then we will write parameterized constructor. Now see here, I'm writing a constructor. For that constructor, I'm taking iPayment as a parameter. iPayment as a parameter. So now, if you go to the bean configuration file, do we have any error? Do we have any error? Yes. Why we are getting error is we configured bill collector as a Spring Bean. That means IOC container responsible to create the bean object. If you configure a bean definition in the XML configuration, that means we are telling the IOC to create the object for this class. We are telling the IOC to create object for this class. But here for this class, is there any 0 param constructor available to create the object? Is there any 0 param constructor available to create the object? Not available. If I don't write this, then by default Java compiler will add one 0 param constructor. By default, Java compiler will add one 0 param constructor. That is the default nature in the Java. But when you write parameterized constructor, then that 0 param constructor will not be added. When you write parameterized constructor, then that zero param constructor will not be added. You have to create the object by using only parameterized constructor. For the bill collector class, there is no zero param constructor to create the object. We have only one option to create the object, that is by using zero param constructor. It is not there. So we have only one option, that is parameterized constructor. Here, when I configure this as a Spring Bean, IOC container should create the object, but there is a parameterized constructor. Does this IOC know what parameter it has to pass for the constructor? That IOC know what parameter it has to pass, or IOC don't know what parameter it has to pass? IOC don't know what parameter it has to pass to call that constructor. That's why it is giving error. Boss, I cannot create object. Boss, you configured bill collector as a Spring Bean, but I don't know how to create the object because that class is having parameter as a constructor. That's why we are getting the problem. That means, is it allowing us to start the application without dependency injection? Is it allowing us to start the application without dependency injection, or it is not allowing us to start? It is not allowing us to start the application because parameter is required to create the object through this constructor. So it is mandatory to perform the dependency injection. It is mandatory to perform the dependency injection now. How can we tell the IOC to perform constructor injection? Constructor-arg. Constructor-arg name is equal to payment, ref is equal to the dependent object. Ref is equal to some UPI. Ref is equal to UPI. If you use a property tag that represents a setter injection, if you use constructor-arg that represents constructor injection. Is that error gone now? Is that error gone now? Is that error gone now? Yes. Because bill collector is having a parameter constructor. For that constructor, what object we need to pass, that I have specified by using constructor-arg. If I remove this, IOC will check for default constructor. For this class, default constructor not available, so it cannot create the object. That is telling very clearly I can't create the object because the zero param constructor not available. So I'm configuring constructor-arg name is equal to payment, ref is equal to UPI. What is the proof that constructor got executed? System.out.println. I'm going to say bill collector constructor executed. Bill collector param constructor executed. Bill collector param constructor. I'm writing one SOP in this constructor. Now go to test.java, right click, run as Java application. Now see, parameter constructor got executed, UPI payment object injected, payment successful through UPI. Are you guys able to see this output? Now, is it executing parameterized constructor or not? How IOC understood it has to perform constructor injection or it has to perform setter injection? How we are informing to IOC? By using tags. If you want to perform the setter injection, then we will use property tag. If you want to perform setter injection, then we will go for property tag. If you want to perform constructor injection, then we will go for constructor-arg tag. Constructor-arg tag. Clear, guys? So with this, we are clear how to perform setter injection by using IOC container, how to perform constructor injection by using IOC container. Setter injection will be represented by using property tag. Constructor injection will be represented by using constructor hyphen arg tag. Constructor hyphen arg tag. Okay. So in the last session, we discussed about the property. So to perform setter injection, we will use property tag. To perform setter injection, we will use property tag like below. Right. To perform constructor injection, we will use constructor hyphen arg tag like below. To perform setter injection, we will use property tag like below. To perform constructor injection, we will use constructor hyphen arg tag like below. Property name is equal to payment, ref is equal to UPI. That means it is going to inject UPI object into bill collector through setter method. To perform constructor injection, we will use constructor hyphen arg tag like below. Constructor arg name is equal to payment, ref is equal to UPI. UPI object will be injected through constructor. All right. Any questions in this application, guys? Any question in this application? No. Sir, here, how many objects will be created in this application? Objects will be created for all the bins, or objects will be created for only bill collector and UPI? Whenever I start this IOC, I'm giving the XML as the input. In that XML, there are 4 bin definitions available. Objects will be created for credit card and debit card. Object, am I using credit card, debit card? Am I using credit card and debit card? I'm not using credit card and debit card. I'm not using credit card and debit card, but I declared them as a bin. I'm not using them, but I declared them as a bin. So objects will be created or objects will not be created for credit card and debit card. Objects will be created or objects will not be created for credit card and debit card. Will be created or will not be created? Will not be created. Will not be created. Will be created. Can we see that? Let's write a constructor. If the object is created, constructor will be executed. Na? If the object is created, constructor will be executed, right? So let me write a 0 param constructor. Let me write the 0 param constructor to prove object is created or not created. So system.out.println credit card payment constructor. System.out.println. Let me prove that constructor is executing or not executing. In the credit card payment, I declared 0 param constructor. Let's go to debit card payment. Even in the debit card payment also, I'm declaring this system.out.println debit card payment constructor. Now let's go to UPI payment. Here also I'm declaring a constructor. Just for understanding, constructor is executed or not. If the constructor is executed, that means object got created. Yep. Now in the bill collector already constructor is available. I have a SOP in the bill collector constructor. In the credit card payment constructor, I have a SOP. In the debit card payment, I have a constructor with SOP. In the UPI payment, I have a constructor with SOP. Good. Now go to test Java, right click, run as Java application. Oh, can you see? Can you see? Constructors are executed or constructors are not executed. Constructors are executed or constructors are not executed. Constructors are executed. Amit, see the console. See the console. Credit card payment constructor executed. Debit card payment constructor executed. UPI payment constructor executed. That means for bill collector constructor executed. There are 4 bean definitions available. For all the bean definitions, objects created or not. For all the 4 definitions, objects created or not. Yes or no? So when you configure a bean definition, IOC container is creating the object. Sir, why the objects are creating immediately? Why the objects are creating immediately? We have to understand next concept, bean scopes concept. By default, every bean in the Spring is a singleton. So for singleton beans, objects are created when the IOC container started. So when you start the IOC container by using application context, it is going to create the object for all the Spring beans which are declared as singleton. By default, every bean scope is a singleton. So that's why whenever we start the IOC container, immediately it is creating the bean objects. So we will discuss that in the bean scopes concept. So now, how many classes objects are getting created? Objects are creating for 2 classes or objects are creating for 4 classes? Objects are creating for 4 classes, right? Because they are declared as Spring beans. The default scope of a Spring bean is a singleton. We'll talk about the scopes concept in the next session. All right. Now, and one more thing, you may get a doubt. Hey Ashok, I'm going to write a setter method also for this variable, public void set payment I payment this dot payment is equal to payment. This dot payment is equal to payment. I'm writing one SOP, system.out.println, system.out.println. Then I'm going to say set payment executed. Now, in how many ways I can inject dependency injection? In how many ways I can perform dependency injection now? For this bill collector is my target. Bill collector wants to talk to a payment. In how many ways I can do the dependency injection here? 2 ways. Here in this class, 2 ways, right? One is a setter, another one is constructor. Samjha? Setter method I can use to perform the dependency injection. Constructor also I can use to perform the dependency injection. How to inform IOC to perform setter injection? How to inform IOC to perform setter injection? Property tag. Using property tag. How to inform IOC to perform constructor injection? 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 constructor hyphen arg tag. Okay. Now go to beans.xml. I'm going to do both. Property name is equal to payment. Ref is equal to credit card. See the behavior. Now tell me what will happen. Now payment will happen through which option? I am trying to inject two different objects into same variable. Setter injection trying to inject credit card. Constructor injection trying to inject UPI. Then kya hoga? Error will come or application will execute. If error comes, why error will come? If there is no error, then what is going to happen? Which object will be the dependent object for bill collector? What will happen here? What will happen here? See the output. Run as Java application. Payment successful through which option? Payment happened through which option? Credit card. That means which one executed finally? Which one executed finally? Setter. Setter. Why? But why? But why? It is taken at first. So first come first serve. FIFO. First in first out. Then okay, I will change the order. First I am setting the constructor only. First I am setting the constructor only. Then run it. Run as Java application. If I keep constructor also first, which one is injected? Setter only. Why? Some people told that first come first. No. I have done the both. For the same variable, I'm doing the setter injection and I'm doing the constructor injection. What will happen? Simple. You need to understand a small concept. See here. Guys, I am taking one class called user. I'm taking one class called user. In the user class, I'm taking one variable called int age variable. Then I have public void set age of int age. Then I'm going to do this dot age is equal to age. So can I say this is a setter method for age variable? This is a setter method for age variable. Yes. And here I'm writing public user int age, then this dot age is equal to age. Okay. So like this, I have a setter method. I have a constructor. Setter also initializing the variable. Constructor also initializing the variable. Now I am going to create object for the user. User is equal to new user of 10. So I'm creating a constructor with parameter. That means variable is initialized. Variable is initialized or variable not initialized? Variable is initialized. I value is what? I value is 10 now. I value is what? I value is 10 now. After this, what I am doing is user dot set age 20. I value is 20 now. User dot I'm going to do system dot out dot println of user dot, sorry, not I here, age value is 10 now, age value is 20 now, user dot age. What will be printed? What will be printed? 20 is the output. 20 is the output. Are you getting my point? Are you getting my point? Why we are getting 20 as the output? Constructor injection happened. It is a constructor injection. I'm initializing the variable through constructor. Through constructor, I injected a 10. When the constructor executed, I value is 10. After that, I'm executing setter. After constructor, then setter will execute. What setter is doing? Setter is overriding the value. Setter is overriding the variable value. So constructor injected 10 value to the variable. First constructor executed, it stored 10 value into age variable. After that, user dot set age of 20. Same variable initialized with the 20 value. So what is the final value? Constructor injection is final or setter injection is final? Constructor injection is final or setter injection is final? Now you understand why credit card is executed. Setter injection is overriding the constructor injection value. When you do the same injection, when you do the injection for the same variable, both constructor and setter, setter will execute last. First constructor will execute, constructor is injecting some value. After that, setter is executing, setter is overriding that value. Setter injection will override the constructor injection value. Now you understand in this scenario. First, in the payment variable, which object will be injected? In the payment variable, first which object will be injected? Constructor. UPI object will be injected to the payment variable. After that, constructor injection is injecting which value to the payment variable? Credit card. So what would be the final object into the payment variable? What is the final object into the payment variable? Credit card object. Credit card object. Now, when you run this, you understand why credit card object is injected. So when you do the both setter and constructor, setter injection will override constructor injection. If you can understand this example, then you can understand why credit card is injected into this class. Is this clear? Is this clear for all of you? Some people told that ambiguity will come. Some people told that first come, first out. No, it is just common sense. First constructor will execute, then setter will execute. Setter is going to re-initialize the variable. First constructor is initializing the variable. Then setter is re-initializing the same variable with different value. Setter method is reinitializing. Setter method is reinitializing the variable. That means setter will override. Setter injection will override constructor injection. Setter injection will override constructor injection. Setter injection will override constructor injection. Got it? All of you clear? But generally we don't do this. If at all we do this, setter will be the final. We don't do this actually in the projects. If we do this, setter injection will happen at last. So setter injection is going to override the constructor injection. Execution sequence we cannot change. Suras, if you change the execution sequence also, if you change the, how can you change the execution sequence here? Can we call the setter method without constructor? Can we call this a setter method without constructor? First we need the object now. First we need the object. When we have the object, then only we can call the setter method. Without having the object, can you call the setter method directly? You cannot. First object should be created. So first constructor should execute. Once the constructor is executed, then only object will be created. If the object is created, then only setter method can be called. Then only setter method can be called. Right? Yeah. So always, if you write the property tag first, still constructor only will execute first. Why? In order to create the class object, constructor should be called. So constructor injection will happen first. The tags order is not important. If you write the property first or if you write the constructor first, there is no difference. When you configure this bean definition, always constructor will execute first. After the constructor executed, then only setter is going to execute. Constructor injection will execute first. Setter injection will execute next. Constructor injection is initializing the variable with some object. Then after, setter injection is reinitializing the variable with a different object. So setter injection is going to override constructor injection. When we do both the setter and constructor injection, when we perform both setter and constructor injection for same variable, then setter injection will override constructor injection. When we perform both the setter and constructor injection for same variable, then setter injection will override constructor injection, because constructor will execute first. Because constructor will execute first. Because constructor will execute first to initialize the variable. Then setter will execute and it will reinitialize the variable. It will reinitialize the variable. Got it? Fine. Good. So with this, we understood how the first application is getting executed, how to perform setter injection, how to perform constructor injection, what is a bean definition. If we do both, what is going to happen? In the tomorrow session, we will understand bean scopes concept. Thank you. Please practice this before coming to tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll talk about bean scopes. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Guys, one more thing. So tomorrow, free Python batch is getting started at morning 7 a.m. You can inform to your friends who are doing the BTech and all. So Python is important for them. So if anybody interested to learn the Python, so they can attend the Python pre-batch tomorrow at 7 a.m. Okay, thank you. We'll continue tomorrow. Bye bye.